Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ESL Hearthstone Legendary Series. Once again, I'm TJ OsmoCutie Sanders, and I'm joined with Fro, Dan the Man, Dan. How's it going?
Well, it's not every day when people go full naming you, so I must be in trouble, TJ.
Yes, you are.
Am I in trouble?
You are in trouble. You're in trouble because you tried to kill me with that sword.
I did try to, but I had to take out my frustrations, TJ. The end of that series was not the prettiest, but hopefully this series can turn it around. You know, we have Silentstorm versus Domdus. I consider both these guys, maybe not necessarily like that far ahead, but I definitely consider them in higher regard than I do Corneco and Luffy in terms of play. I think these guys are really sharp. They rarely make huge misplays, and I think Silentstorm, sometimes he plays a little bit quick.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be a good change of pace. Both those guys, Luffy and Corneco, really had to think through some really tough turns, long and hard, and as a result, roped a couple of times where it was like, well, the play might be a little obvious, but, you know, still it's one of those like scenarios where you have to weigh all your options. Silentstorm's not going to do that. He's just going to be like, well, I play really quick, and I'm also going to be playing Priest!
Yeah.
And Paladin! And Rogue! No Hunter, no Warlock, no Druid, no Warrior.
Yeah, this is like going as far against the grain as you could possibly go. Even Shaman has been more popular over the course of like the last week of the Legendary Series than these three classes, than like Paladin or Rogue, for example. Silentstorm is also the player that we've seen the most on the Legendary Series. We saw him in Season 1 make it 2 weeks in 2 of the match day weeks last season. He also made it to the Season 1 finals where he won. And then we, of course, saw him earlier in the season in Season 2. Now we're seeing him again. He's always fun to watch because he always brings crazy decks. Domdus, on the other hand, we saw him in the last week of the Legendary Series Season 2. And he had a decent performance. He broke the mold by bringing Paladin in his week. But I believe he eventually lost to Reynad, which ended up being sort of his kryptonite. Reynad went on to win the whole tournament, but I'm sure Domdus was upset because Domdus actually 3-0'd every other opponent besides Reynad. So it was a really interesting set of matches. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys have in store for us.
I'm looking forward to Silentstorm, man. This guy is so exciting to watch. And what's really cool is that he always brings his own deck styles too. Even if he's bringing something popular, he'll like throw in Toshli in Druid, and you're like, what? And it just happens to be really good and works out okay. The guy's an innovator. He's a strong technical player. He plays fast, and he also makes legendary interviews. I want Silentstorm to come back. I think he's one of the best players in the entire region, and it's really cool as Tiddler Celestial picked that up on his team.
Yeah, it's also the variety of decks that he's able to play by having lots of resources in both the North America and the Asian scenes. Is a really big benefit to him because he plays primarily on North America, has practice partners in North America, but then he also has his team with Tiddler Celestial has a lot of Asian contact. So he's got a wide variety of deck lists that he can play, wide variety of deck lists that he chooses to bring. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, I guess so. Meanwhile, Domdus, no Paladin for him today. That was like the deck where I thought it was like a little weird that he brought Paladin, but he made it work. Paladin was definitely not the weak link in his lineup. Instead, today he's got more of a traditional Druid, Warlock, and Warrior. Opted not to bring the Hunter, but it's okay. Druid's still a pretty decent choice. Now, I wonder what Silentstorm is targeting, because obviously he's the talk of the town right now. He has such a weird lineup, but it has to be singling something out, right? Like he wants to beat Hunter, maybe, or maybe Warrior. Maybe the Priest against Warrior, Paladin against Warrior. No, Rogue's just bad. Like, what's going on in his head? I need to know, TJ.
I don't know.
I need to know now.
It's really hard to say because out of the only one that I can think might be the one he's targeting is like Zoo, because these 3 decks have decent matchups against Zoo. Midrange Pally can do things against Zoo with early swing cards like Muster for Battle and Shielded Minibot, which can go a long way. Rogue, of course, we talked about that matchup quite a bit earlier, but Rogue is one of the stronger ones against Zoo. And of course, Priest has classically been considered one of the counters to Zoo. And Froden's pointing and laughing at my notes for Reynad and saying one of Reynad's accomplishments is being top 2 out of 2 in a show match with Savitz.
Why'd you write that down?
That's
top 2 in a show match. Out of 2.
That's literally listed on his Wikipedia page.
It's because
like under his accomplishments.
He got a money out of it. That's why. Like they list it because it's his prize earnings.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a look at Paladin versus the Druid. Already, weird stuff happening. That's a Hogger.
Yep.
What's he gonna throw next? A Sea Giant in his deck?
How did you get to Sea Giant?
Well, because he has Muster for Battle
Okay,
Hogger.
okay,
That's
okay.
like a bunch of tokens.
Yeah, I would think like Nat Pagal.
That seems less plausible than Sea Giant.
I thought
Pagal.
Nat Pagal I think would be good in War Rogue, but that's a conversation for a different day. I had a dream about it, but that's also a conversation for a different day.
Yeah, sure. All right, well, nothing to start things off, but Muster for Battle is usually a pretty problematic card for Druid to deal with because they can't keep up with the tempo that's gained through Quartermaster on the coin. And that's going to be difficult. I'm already a little bit more amped up this series, TJ, because I'm starting to see some exciting stuff. We get to see Paladin, man.
Yeah, I found it. He's countering Druid. If it's Chinese Light Bomb Priest, all 3 of those decks are really strong against Druid.
Yeah, that's fair.
It could be possible. I don't know.
And
it's hard to
does have Druid.
It's hard to peer into the mind of Silentstorm.
Yeah. Oh boy, Muster for Battle. And now, of course, Domdus is really hoping he draws Swipe. If he doesn't draw Swipe, he's going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have at least 2 3/3s. Maybe even more.
And even just if there's 2 3/3s, that's a big swing in momentum. Because that's just, would that essentially be 4, 6, 9 worth of stats for 5 mana with just 2 of those guys on the board? Oh, sorry, 5, 8 worth of stats with just 2 of those guys on the board, which is pretty ridiculous for 5 mana.
Well then, do you reveal the Shade? I guess that's the big question. You know your opponent has a coin, so you have to reduce it. The Shade could kill 2 of those recruits. If you don't, and your opponent has Choose Over Champion, you're just going to be holding the Shade anyways. So if you attack into this 1/1, they should deny him Quartermaster value. If not, then it's like, well, he's got 3 3/3s on the board, and you just lost an insane amount of board presence. This is why the threat of Quartermaster sometimes is just greater than Quartermaster itself.
Yeah, you don't even need to have a Quartermaster in your deck for that to be... It's the same with Druids and combo. Like, even nowadays, where you see Ancient of War, you can't even put your opponent on not having combo. It's something you always play around, even if the Druid doesn't have it.
Well, now he's got a pretty firm control, 6 power on the board, answering whatever comes out here. So even if Druid Claw comes out, he should be able to start setting it up. Swipe 1 card too late. Poor Domdus. Oh, man.
Slightly awkward. Just
really
slightly.
Awkward.
Well, seems like...
Swipe's like, I heard you need me. Yeah? Yeah, I did.
Seems like Druid the Claw is the most reasonable option here.
Maybe Lotheb as well. Lotheb would make both minions trade into it. Then it's susceptible to True Server Champion.
Yeah, that's true.
Druid the Claw is the one more in plentiful bounce, though. And it would force your opponent to at least take a little bit of damage, which is good.
But Midrange Paladin has sort of been out of the meta for a while, and people sort of forget about its strengths in a lot of these matchups. But it can build up a lot of pressure early on with cards like Muster for Battle, Quartermaster, and even just sticky threats like Shield and Minibot and Paladin Shredder.
It doesn't feel like it makes much sense to even throw in some of the weird tech cards. Like, let's play Hogger, where my opponent can get another Grim Patron off of my Null. But it's really good against Hunter.
But then I get another Null next turn.
It's true, but he gets another Grim Patron turn after that.
Ooh.
Quite the conundrum.
Sticky situation.
I mean, I have to imagine that it's tech against Hunter.
Yeah.
Because it's really good against the aggression. Maybe it's his best way to answer stuff like Zoo, too, as opposed to other things. But I know some people have been tossing in really interesting stuff in their defensive control-ish decks, like Sunwalker, for example. How are you going to use Grim Patron to get past the Sunwalker?
It's possible.
You're really not.
No.
Even if they enter rage, it's like They have to use both of those to suicide it, and the Great Patron just gets stopped. So it's interesting to see how some of these people are differentiating on how they're attacking the metagame from different points.
Maybe Silentstorm's just going for the style points.
Style Storm?
Style Storm, yeah.
Silent Storm.
I wonder.
Well, the Lothep does answer the Sludge Belcher. The thing about Druid of the Claw is that your opponent, if he has True Silver, answers so easily with the Quartermaster, which is officially topped out in stream value. And not only buffed up 2 of your 3/3, or your 3/3, so that way it can kill off the Shade, but it also allowed you to trade efficiently into this Druid of the Claw, which normally True Silver Champion struggles a little bit. And you get to set the shielded mini-bot.
Yeah. Strong turn of plays. Now, the one thing you talked about the tech cards of mid-range Paladin. But the thing that I want to know the most is how many like control sort of S cards is he running? Like, is he running any Iron Beak Owls? Is he running like 1 equality or 2 equalities? I think those are pretty big deals in the current meta, because if you look back at when mid-range Paladin first got sort of that surge right after Muster for Battle was released, when it was eating up decks like before the Oil Rogue phase sort of came into play, the meta was not as slow, I guess, as it was now. There wasn't as many like Control Warriors, hand locks.
Right.
And so you could get away with playing 1 equality.
Well, I think the equality, like 1 equality is definitely standard. 2 would surprise me. Yeah, I think 2 is not also out of the question, though, considering that it's really powerful against Grim Patron.
Yeah, and handlock.
And handlock as
and
well.
Potentially Druid.
True. Another thing, too, is I know some people were really thinking about some weird stuff, like having spell power in your deck, so that way you can kill off with Consecration, like Thaunos Consecration.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people on paper were thinking, oh, Dragon Paladin's going to be fantastic. It's a great call for the meta because you can Azure Drake for 3 mana after Dragon Consort and then Consecrate to clear a whole board of Grim Patrons on turn 8. But it hasn't worked out like that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Or fortunately, depending how you want to look at it.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of dragons.
Dragons are pretty sweet. So it's cool that you go for a big tempo play, but how much damage are these boot bots going to do?
Whoa!
Maximum damage. Oh, Domdus does a nod. Okay. But that's... Oh, that's really scary considering the True Silver Champion is a lot of damage. There is a Harrison Jones, though, waiting, so Harrison can stop the second half of True Silver. Silentstorm realistically might just go for it. Juggler,
I mean, he could just build up a board here.
Yeah, Juggler, Shielded Minibot, and the Pilot Shredder is also really intimidating to deal with.
Yeah. Because you know that he's seen a swipe here. He knows that the possibility to remove a lot of those small little threats like that is going to be really tough.
Okay, going for just the straight-up strongest play available to him. Sylvanas 5/5, 2/2. How do you dig yourself out of this one?
Is there any way that he can even survive? Cenarius,
Cenarius is gain. No, he just dies to Consecration.
That's Consecration. And he hasn't seen one yet, so that's risky.
So he's just going to swipe.
Oh, double BGH.
Yeah, he's playing 2 big game hunters. He's predicting the hand locks.
Yeah. There's usually a little bit of wiggle room with the 3 mana tech cards, or 3 or 4 mana tech cards with Druid. You can usually fit in a second BGH, a Mind Control tech, or like a Kazan Mystic.
Silentstorm has lethal. Got True Silver Champion Consecration, and that burst combination is just enough to end the game.
Those boom bots were deadly.
They were exactly the damage you needed to end the game.
Yeah.
Domdus is probably pretty upset about that. Tough break. I feel like Domdus is definitely one of the guys who's gotten the worst end of sticks of the RNG staff.
Definitely true.
Like, I remember so many times where he got a lot of bad rolls.
And still won.
And still won.
Yeah.
In this series. It was actually ridiculous.
It's hard to overcome things like that. But Silentstorm's going to take a win with the Paladin. Pretty quick victory. A lot thanks to Dr. Boone, but can't always count
Man,
on those
Paladin
Grimlots doing
getting the
damage.
win. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and toss it out there. Can Priest win in this series? It can beat the Druid for sure. Not necessarily like a guaranteed favorite, but it definitely is a deck that you can take out. But what about everything else here? The Warlock and the Warrior.
Depends what kind of priest it is. We don't really know with Silentstorm. If it's like the Chinese Light Bomb priest, then I think it does pretty well against Grim Patron Warrior.
Yeah, I have to imagine it leans towards that as well because of the association with Tiddler.
Yeah.
Now that he's more plugged into the Chinese scene, maybe Tiddler gave him a really good deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a possibility that it's more like a creature heavy, like the, I don't even know, Kalento's priest version that we saw a couple weeks ago from him.
Sure.
But that's sort of fallen out of favor because it doesn't do quite as well against decks like Grim Patron Warrior. But we'll have to see. It is going to be tough for Priest to take out Warlock in almost any fashion, just because a lot of times people have always considered Priest one of the counters to Zoo, but Zoo has a lot more ways to sort of blow out the game nowadays than they did. And it's still true that sometimes the removal from Priest just doesn't line up. Sometimes they just don't draw into the removal that they need. It's a very reactive sort of class. It's been the reactiveness has been reduced with cards like Velen's Chosen, where you can get early bodies out and stop damage that way instead of relying on multiple card combos. But it still can be a tough matchup. This is going to be Druid versus Rogue, though, so we are going to see what kind of Rogue Silentstorm's bringing here. We can presume it's a Oil Rogue, but Chalky switched things up yesterday, so it's a possibility.
I have to imagine that it is Oil Rogue from Silentstorm. I'd be really surprised if it was anything else. The aggro Rogue in general felt like a Chalky special. Like it's something that he would do.
Yeah.
But it's not something that a lot of players would agree with him on.
Well,
is there any other type of Rogue?
Dragon Rogue?
Dragon Rogue. I personally would love Mech Rogue, but it seems like it's not going to be that case. He's got Prep Sprint. Something that you could even fathomably keep against Druid because it's like a turn 4 play.
I wasn't sold on Mech Rogue when you first started to talk to me about it, but after playing with it over the past couple of days, I think it's really strong.
What's your record with Mech Rogue?
Right now, 6-1.
6-1.
It's a small sample size, but I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, on the Legend ladder for North America.
Yep.
Not bad. Keeps only the SI7 agent, wants the actual 4 drops instead of the draw into the 4 drop.
Yep. He's on the coin. Always like to see that as a Rogue player.
Extra card's pretty clutch. Coin activator, and that's the card he was looking for. Violet Teacher, very powerful against Druid. Druid has the swipe, but more importantly, Druid doesn't have a turn 2 play. That Wild Growth would have been excellent.
Yeah. He's still got a decent curve, but Keeper of the Grove is sort of a situational 4-drop, so it can't really be considered like a traditionally good curve. Because there might even be a likelihood that he doesn't even use the Keeper.
This is also a really strong play. Now that he can't play the Shade of Naxxramas comfortably, because if he Fan of Knives, then he just kills it off. So this is encouraging Domdus to skip his turn by hero powering down the 1/1.
Or call his bluff.
Or call his bluff.
I wonder.
Domdus really now weighing his option. Here's another troubling thing. If Domdus hero powers down, he's waited long enough and agonized to the point where Silentstorm can make a read like he has Shade for sure.
Yeah. He's mousing over the same card.
Yeah. I still think Shade, playing Shade is okay. You usually don't keep Fan of Knives against Druid. It's just rare to have it. But if he does have the Shade and you Fan of Knives, that's a blowout opportunity. Like you just possibly lose too much board presence. And he just goes for the conservative play. And now Silentstorm gets Violet Teacher on the board preemptively and can't get answered. That is really, really bad news. Or does he go? Is he going to play a 3-drop instead? Because now he has a backstab with the Drake. That's also really good.
If he plays a 3-drop here, if he made the read that was Shade of Naxxramas, if he plays a 3-drop here, it makes a really interesting turn for Domdus again, where he has to decide to play Shade, float a mana, or like Wrath it if he would have that instead.
I still think Via Teacher's okay because you have Deadly Poison now, so then you can like Deadly Poison, backstab, and guaranteed kill anything on the board with that much damage. Koi Via Teacher's just like super strong.
Yeah. It's not too scary for Domdus because he does have swipe.
Right. You might even consider silencing this teacher. But that's like you don't have many silence targets in Drew.
That's true.
Other than Van Cleef.
Yeah. Because you've already been through Blood Mage Thanos, which is probably the other one.
Yeah, actually, I'm much more in favor of silencing this Violet Teacher than just playing Shade. Because most likely he's going to have to play something else, and then Shade trades into it anyways because it has to attack, and then Violet Teacher starts getting 1/1 tokens.
I wonder.
Are you really afraid of the 1/1 tokens? That you have swipe?
That's a good point. Maybe he's not afraid of it because he has swipe.
Next turn's a weird turn in the fact that if a lot of 1/1 tokens are made, he can't swipe and hero power.
Time waits for no one.
No, I think you're actually really right on the point there. Why should you be afraid of the 1/1s if he has swipe?
Because he's not going to get immediate value out of those things. They're going to die eventually. He's not trying to protect anything on his board from 1/1s. Just a bunch of Violet Apprentices running at you, poking you with sticks.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt that much.
So I guess because you don't really have that many clean ways to address board, you were expecting Pilot Shredder or something. You just play a 3-drop here.
Yeah.
SI has a bigger impact as the game goes on. Arseer just ends up coming out healing for one. Pilot Shredder would have been okay last turn, but it turns out his opponent had the perfect answer with Deadly Poison and backstabs.
I like the Savage Roar here.
Savage Roar is a clean removal of everything on the board.
And you could set yourself up for Emperor Thorson next turn. The one thing is that how juicy would it be to reduce Savage Roar in your hand with Emperor Thorson, but you're not guaranteed to even have a safe turn to do that if you don't clear off the board here. I mean, you could also find the middle ground with the Keeper of the Grove. Whoa.
She's just setting up a strong swipe.
Okay.
Well, if I'm Silentstorm, I think I'm pretty tuned into the swipe here. Might just.
Oh, you think?
Yeah. So I guess you can just play the Drake then. But the Drake also plays into the swipe. His opponent attacks into Violet Teacher with the 4/4, swipes the Drake. This is a very actually advanced play from Domdus to like line this up so that way it disincentivizes his opponent doing anything. Maybe he just uses backstab SS7 agent and dagger. Because then it like plays less into swipe. Imagine if Domdus made this play and he didn't have swipe. Can you imagine like how crazy that'd be just like to go next level?
Yeah.
These guys are definitely responding a lot though to each other's tells and reads. I like this so far a lot.
This guy's toast.
Sneaking a little bit more damage. Get the weapon out so that way Deadly Poison and Drake is a viable play next turn.
And this makes it so... I guess he has Dr. Boom. So he can swipe here, set up for a Dr. Boom next turn. Emperor Thorson is going to sit in that hand for a long time. He's got 2 swipes.
Right.
So swipe and attack in. He's not developing anything on the board.
I wonder if you can Thorson here, because he's clearly played around the swipe now.
Yeah.
And next turn...
You can take a lot of damage next turn. He just fresh daggered up. If he Deadly Poisons
too much damage on
and Tinkers, then that's way too much damage.
You're right. Just thinking. I was just thinking out loud.
Okay. Fair enough. You're allowed to do that. I'll allow it.
Thank you, Senpai. So Silentstorm will definitely take this out. He's got Drake to start drawing cards. Maybe even force out a Wrath or swipe again.
Yeah. There's the Tinkers. Domdus has taken some residual damage so far this game. He's at about 22 health. He's not in any danger. I think he just popped down Dr. Boom.
Yeah, Boom is problematic. Leaving the Drake up, though, is also problematic.
Yeah, but if he plays a swipe, then he's doing nothing else.
It's true. Well, if it's not Dr. Boom, then it's Ancient of Lore. That's the only two real plays here in this turn.
Yeah. And one of these boom bots could deal with that Azure Drake.
The thing is, like, he can just play via Teacher. Oh, man, via Teacher, Fan of Knives. And then... No, wait. I guess he doesn't have enough mana to sap as well. I'm saying that boom bots might be able to absorb stuff.
If he wants to take 7 damage,
Right.
potentially more with the boom bots.
Yeah, just saps.
Just sap, yeah.
Attack with the Drake first, and then attack the 1/1. Make him lose tempo.
Yeah, and I mean, the tempo gain from a play like this is pretty huge. Like, he has to spend either his turn... a point that you made earlier was Druids don't do multiple things every turn. They either spend their turn removing or they spend their turn building their own board. It's really hard to do both as a Druid player.
Right.
And so by sapping Dr. Boom here, he gains so much tempo that and puts a threatening enough board that Domdus will have to either remove this turn or build up a board this turn.
Well, he's got to play to swipe the Violet Teacher and then Boombot into the 3/1 and hope to God that you can snipe that Drake 50% and the 50%.
Yeah.
So it's a 50-50 on hitting the Drake and it's a 50-50 on killing it. And then you can play Pilot Shredder. That would be the ideal scenario.
Yeah.
The other scenario, I can't really think of another one that's like, that could work out as good as this.
And he can swipe in Wrath.
Time waits for no one.
It's true.
Oy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's going to have to Wrath that.
Yeah. He could have judged his outcome. It looked like he picked up the Wrath like he was planning on doing that either way. But if that had hit the Azure Drake, I mean, he would have had to Pilot Shredder. He's thinking about doing Pilot Shredder anyway.
Well, he ran out of time, actually.
I don't think that's... He doesn't seem too comfortable about that play, judging by his expel.
Hold on. How much damage is this? Okay, not enough.
No.
But it's still a lot of damage if you just weapon up Deadly Poison, Sharp Sword, Oil, and then hit the face.
It's 12 this turn.
That is also a Fan of Knives for 3 damage, and you can guaranteed kill whatever comes out with the backstab. Oh, except I know you're Tron. Alright. Fine. Works for me. Double Drake all the way. Pushing for damage. And once again, Rogue way ahead of Druid on the tempo.
Next turn, he has 10 damage just from hand. With Dagger Up, Deadly Poison, Tinkers, and Eviscerate. So if just one of these Drakes survives, he is dead. And there's no... The only way that he would survive here is if he Wrathed and then healed with Ancient of Lore. But how hard is that to see? How much damage?
He might Dr. Boom in Wrath.
Yeah. How much damage could you put your opponent on having if you leave them with an Azure Drake and 9 mana? Well, you have 15 health.
It's getting to the point where he could Oil and Flurry. So
Yeah.
if he did that, he would have 8 damage plus the... Oh, no, 9 damage because the spell power plus the 3. That's 13. And that's 8 mana. So, yeah. Like, it's pretty hard to pass up this Dr. Boom because you don't think you could die just from the Oil Flurry. Now, if he had Deadly Poison and the Flurry, then it's like, yeah, you die.
Yeah. He's been struggling to find the option that he wants on these turns. It's difficult.
Boombot set it up so if you draw Force of Nature and somehow these Boombots survive, you could end up killing him.
But that is it.
Yeah, that's lethal. Weapon up, Oil, Sharp Sword Oil, and Eviscerate. That's 9 mana exactly, too.
Yeah. And actually, he doesn't... No, yeah, he would still need it.
Yeah, he needs Eviscerate for sure. It's
Yep.
just enough burst. I think he has him by a couple points, though.
Yeah.
So that wraps up game number 2. Silentstorm is up 2-0. Rogue and Paladin. He's about to go maybe even 3-0 with Priest, but Domdus definitely has to stop this pain train, and I think he might queue it up with his hand lock if he has it.
Yeah, but Silentstorm's in a great position. He's given himself 3 opportunities to find a win with Priest. So I'd imagine he could at least beat one of these decks.
Sure.
And he's confident enough to bring the Priest, so he does put it last. A lot of players will choose to put like their weakest deck last, or what they perceive to be their weakest deck last, just so
percentage-wise.
yeah, so they can give themselves the most opportunities to get a win with their weakest deck, given that they go up in a lead in the series. Same thing that Chalky did yesterday with the Rogue. It ended up not working out for him because in Conquest, if one deck has a poor performance, then it's a liability for the entire tournament. Because you have to win every single match. You have to win a game with all those decks in every single match.
Mm-hmm. True. Loving the Priest choice, though, although I'm worried whether or not it's actually good. What do you think? All right, TJ, what kind of priest do you think it is? Is it Control Priest or is it Chinese Priest? Is it Mech Priest?
I think
it's Dragon Priest.
I think it's Chinese Priest.
What are the chances, TJ, that there's a dragon in this priest deck?
0% chance.
0% chance it's a dragon.
Yeah.
0% chance it's a dragon.
0% chance it's a dragon.
What about the chances that there's a mech in this deck?
Highly likely. 100% chance.
So you think it's a priest, a mech priest?
No, it's a Chinese priest. They run anti-KO bots.
Oh, you're right.
I think it's a Chinese priest. If I had to make a guess, all the signs point to it. You mentioned earlier it was a good point with his team being involved with Titular Celestial.
Probably a light bomb priest.
Yep, some variation of that.
Great against aggro.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's also great against like mid-range.
Sure. Maybe Silentstorm was targeting the hunters, the mid-range hunters.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well.
Yeah, Rogue, Paladin, and Priest. Maybe they can all do it against it.
Mm-hmm.
What a funky lineup, though.
Yeah, the hybrid priest or the hybrid hunter that's been becoming popular that you were playing earlier in the day, I think actually just tears apart rogues.
Your soul shall be mine.
Light of the Naru implies that it's just a regular control priest. Although it still can anything can happen.
Yeah. The telling cards will be cards like Deathlord, Velen's Chosen, Paladin Shredder, Light Bombs, Gilblin Stalker. Even though I have seen some like Control Priest put in Gilblin.
The Stalker.
Gilblin.
No.
Yeah.
Injured Blade Master is one of the ways, though, you can definitely seize control against Handlock.
Yeah.
You get the Twilight Drake out before the Twilight Drake.
Circle of Healing is a big tell. Circle of Healing means it's almost for sure control.
This is going to be a tough matchup. He's got Power Word Shield, though, in this deck. It's interesting. Opts not to use the coin here. Instead, Injured Blade Master, Circle of Healing. So he can take his time and coin out on other turns.
Such a strong play.
He's going to use the Circle of Healing here. He will. It's much better than just coining out the Power Word Shield because it's resilient against a lot of things.
Yeah. And the Injured Blade Master Circle of Healing actually usually matches up against a Twilight Drake.
Ooh, one card off from the Mountain Giant. It's interesting that Silentstorm tossed away the Shadow Word Death because he wasn't sure about the possibility of Zoo.
It's not something you can afford to do. You always have, especially as Priest, you have to mulligan for Zoo almost every time. Because the game that you try and put him on being a handlock is the game that he's playing Zoo and you have a useless Shadow Word Death in your hand for most of the game.
Right. But now that drawing that Northshire Cleric allows him to draw a card. Pyromancer, not the most amazing card in this matchup, but might be helpful. Sludge Belcher would get punished pretty heavily by Shadow Madness.
Yeah.
So he opts to play the Mountain Giant. Better play, at least tempo-wise. Sylvanas.
Whoa. All right, so a couple of options here. You can coin out the Sylvanas, which Sylvanas has a lot of really powerful usages later on, especially if you're the Priest. With things like you Shadow Word Death your own Sylvanas. Or you can heal up the Injured Blade Master, attack in, then Light of the Naru it to like bring it out of range of like Mortal Coil, bring it out of range of like Dark Bomb, and still challenges the Mountain Giant.
Putting the Pyromancer also means he kills the off the Ancient Watcher.
But it makes it vulnerable to Dark Bomb.
Yeah, but Hellfire also kills his own Giant.
Yeah, that's true.
It is vulnerable to Dark Bomb #2. He used one Dark Bomb already on the Northshire Cleric. What's the likelihood that he has a second one?
Yeah.
Not as high as it currently is right now. 100% chance. Because we know it.
We do know it. Might as well throw down the ooze. Unless it's Blingtron Priest.
Shadow Flame so that he can continue to press. It's a very cute play.
Super cute. Ooh, Shrinkmeister Cabal combination. That is really strong against Twilight Drakes in this matchup. Also Sludge Belchers.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like Silentstorm got called out on his move, and Domdus, as a result, punishes really heavily. Harrison would come down, but
must consider.
You know, that still might get challenged if his opponent takes it Mortal Coil. Or if his opponent had Farseer or something.
Yeah. This is going to be a big swing, though, because he's going to end up playing Sludge Belcher here. It's going to get stolen, and he's going to be able to take out the Mountain Giant.
Yeah.
It's going to get stoled.
Sludge Belcher is the better play, but you're afraid of the Shadow Madness, so you would have to kill off the Harrison.
Yeah. It's whether or not you want to play around just Shadow Madness or play around Cabal.
And he has both.
Cabal. Yeah.
No matter what you do.
Yeah.
Twilight Drake's also like the more powerful tempo play. It's just a bigger minion.
Yeah.
But it's about to get stolen.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do.
I wonder.
Oh, dang. But he does have the Iron Beak Owl.
Yep, that is true. Iron Beak Owl, but he'd have to use like a 2-card combination to kill his own card.
Yeah, but you definitely do it.
Yeah. And being able to kill this Mountain Giant without having to use Shadow or Death opens up opportunities for him to use Shadow or Death later on in the game to kill Molten Giants, or maybe use it a little bit more creatively to steal a creature with your own Sylvanas.
Well, speaking of Sylvanas, might be the best play here, considering that the Drake probably won't die for a while. He might be able to take it back.
Yeah.
I wonder.
It would be one turn away from him being able to Sylvanas Shadow or Death to steal his Sylvanas. It would also be a couple turns away from mind control.
Yep.
And you want to get value out of it before those things come down.
Oh, for sure.
So I would definitely say this is a Sylvanas turn.
You could tap too and get away with it. Should be fine. Probably wouldn't recommend silencing the Drake, because that's the big complicated factor. You can even save it for something else.
Got to be afraid of the Velen's double Mind Blast combination.
That is true. Valen's with double Mind Blast, or just one Mind Blast.
50% of the priests that we've seen all week have run Velen's.
Half of them? Pretty crazy.
1 out of 2.
Gosh.
This is problematic.
Yeah.
It's the best way
Can
to
you
go.
just death it and then just address whatever happens afterwards?
Yeah, if he steals the Twilight Drake, then how do you address that?
Oh, you're right.
You can like attack in with the Twilight Drake, then Shadow or Death it. But that feels like a lot of wasted resources.
If you attack into it, I don't know.
I wonder.
Or just ignore it for now.
Ignore it and just charge phase and go YOLO. I don't know about that.
I mean, he does have his own Sylvanas Shadow or Death, so if he ignores it and then goes face and can address.
I have no time for
It's true. Technically, it goes second, but his opponent does have the Sylvanas, silence for the Sylvanas with double Molten Giant.
Whoa!
Okay, this is going to be a huge play this turn of some kind, unless he's already planned it out. Double Molten.
Silence.
Yeah.
Twilight. Are you afraid of Light Bomb, though? I don't know if you want to put your opponent on having Light Bomb.
I don't think so. You haven't seen Death Lord or Valen's Chosen or anything like that. You've seen Circle of Healing.
Yeah.
So silence that. I guess he wanted to play the Drake first, but he could have I think he's fine with this.
Yeah, he can guarantee that he gets a steal on one of the more important creatures with the either the Twilight Drake or the Cabal Shadow Priest. And he's going to be able to get Molten Giants out here, and then he has Jiraxis. Jiraxis is one of the strongest cards against Priest, especially classic control Priest.
Oh, he stole the Drake.
Back. That was his Drake to begin with.
I mean, this is a really tough matchup for Priest. How are you supposed to overcome this in the first place? I think double Molten Sludge Belcher is okay. Oh, no. Shadow Madness might destroy you. He has to Sun Fury here.
In the next turn, Silentstorm has a lot of reactive cards here. He's got a lot of interesting things that he can do, but none of those are going to be able to get through this big of a wall. And he's at 16 health, so if he doesn't address it, he's just going to die.
Oh, man. He drew the Shrinkmeister a little bit too late.
So he can Shadow or Death one of these Moltens.
Right.
They'll be left with 16 damage exactly on the board. Then he would have to Shadow Madness
Must consider.
or Shadow Word Pain just to survive.
Right. Shrinkmeister the Drake.
Shadow
and then
Madness.
Shadow Madness. Oh, just Shadow Word Pain.
Yeah.
Okay. It's too bad that he couldn't utilize the Shrinkmeister with Shadow Madness to potentially push for lethal, but he still has it next turn. If his opponent plays Sludge Belcher, he dies. But he most likely will just trade and Jiraxis.
Yeah.
And that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back here.
You usually have, with classic control priests like this, you usually have one window to beat the handlock at any given time. And basically that window is you hoping that your opponent doesn't have like any one of however many cards that just completely stops you in your tracks. And Jiraxis just happened to be the answer right there. And he had many opportunities to draw into it. Jiraxis is usually the card that when it comes down and you're the priest player, it's basically game over. As long as
if you draw Shadow Word Death, though, is there still a chance? I think so.
If he plays Nefarian and gets Sacrificial Pact.
Whoa!
Whoa!
That is the opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
Nefarian Sacrificial Pact. TJ will quit casting if that happens.
I will eat my shoe, quit casting, and shove that sword into my leg.
I'll be the one to do it.
If there's Nefarian and he draws Sacrificial Pact, I breathed a slight sigh of relief that was a Nakanai Soul Priest.
He's got 4, 6, 8, 10 damage if he was allowed to play everything. It's too much. Silentstorm taps out, and that is a 2-1 score. But Domdus, I mean, that was the matchup that he could target, right? If he couldn't win that game, it wasn't in the stars. But now going out, looking at the rest of it, the Priest versus the Druid, and the Priest versus the Warrior.
Yeah.
The important thing that you start off with the best deck, too, is you get information about your opponent's deck. So now that he beat the Priest, he knows what kind of Priest it is, what cards he has to play around. 2 Shrinkmeisters and Cabals and all these other things. So he's getting information now. He knows Shadow Word Pain exists, too.
Can the Priest take a victory?
Against Druid, it definitely can. I think Control Priest against Druid is actually a pretty decent matchup for Priest. The Priest versus Control Warrior, yes. Priest versus Patron Warrior, maybe. I put a maybe on it because Priest is good at dealing with the patrons with Circle of Healing.
Yeah.
But it's bad if it doesn't have it, or if your opponent has Frothing Berserker burst from the hand, you can't really stop it as Priest.
Yeah. That's true.
But one thing that is cool is when you do like Shadow Madness plays on Grim Patron.
And you get your own Grim Patrons.
You get your own Grim Patron and stuff like that.
I was thinking of that earlier. Some decks, as a counter to Grim Patron Warriors, could just put in Grim Patrons of their own. And on a turn where they think their opponent is going to set up Grim Patrons, they use their own Grim Patron.
To deny them.
Yeah. It's like Snipe, but better.
Because you have your own patron.
Because you have your own patrons.
Wow.
Completely denies your opponent's patrons.
Or you can just do Mirror Entity. Oh, no, because then the Warsong Commander comes out first.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You know.
How about this? You play Mind Vision.
Whoa!
And Thought Steal.
Even better.
And you take the cards from their hand.
You just one up to my idea
Yeah.
with an even more bold idea.
Priest versus Druid. Here we go. Can Silentstorm completely defy the odds here? Because we haven't had a successful Priest all week long. We haven't had a successful Priest in a really long time. Let's be real here. Priest is in a rough spot.
The closest Priest to being successful that we've seen over the course of the Legendary Series was Kalento in the week that he won. Played Priest.
We've seen more successful Shamans than Priests.
Yeah,
which
that's
says
true.
a lot.
Yeah. and
Shaman at least has Mech Shaman.
Yeah, and Shaman has been not wrecking, but in the games that it wins, it's been wrecking. Savitz did pretty well with Shaman.
Oh my god.
That's dirty.
Okay, so the Northshire Cleric baits out the Wrath. Then you play Injured Blade Master 1, don't do anything. You Injured Blade Master 2 and Circle of Healing.
Yeah.
That's got to be the play.
And also, if he doesn't have a Wrath,
Right.
then you just completely win the game.
Right, but that's got to be the play.
Yeah.
The only way that could be made better is if he picks a Power Word Shield in the next card and then secures the Northshire Cleric so that he can get a guaranteed draw card.
Yeah.
Pyromancer is also a little interesting considering that it's board pressure, but because it does a little bit of damage, it weakens everything as well. I like the board presence, though.
Yeah.
Now all he has to do is pick up Circle of Healing number 2. And he really wants the Wild Growth. He really wants the Wild Growth.
Thinking, what could possibly go wrong
Well,
if I Wild Growth?
He knows exactly what could go wrong. He could have 2 Circle of Healings, and this game is over.
It's so hard to pass up the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
It's not even just like a play thing or like a personal thing. It's like a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Druid players, since they were born, it's been ingrained into their heads that Wild Growth is good. Wild Growth on turn 2 wins games. Casters, players, and fans alike say, Wild Growth, so OP. And so Domdus is trying to fight his natural desires that society has branded into his brain right now, and not Wild Growth, and use the Wrath instead.
It's going to Wrath.
That's how difficult of a decision that is.
It's the right choice. It's the right choice, and he makes the super tough call.
And he's going to have to go throw up into a trash can.
Now you play Injured Blade Master number 1 and tack and pass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Domdus took the bait, too, with the Wrath. And now he's hating life. But he's going to Wild Growth, right? Or is he going to Keeper the Grove and dunk the Wild Pyromancer and then get completely overwhelmed? Wild Growth does set up 2 5-drops, though, into a Coin Ancient of Lore. That's a 2 to 3 turn play sequence.
Yeah.
He's wondering if he can withstand the pressure. The problem with this is that if he Wild Growths now, the Injured Blade Master guarantees to be a 4-5 at the least, and then it trades into the Drake pretty well. So if he coins out the Keeper of the Grove, at least he can kill a minion and then keep that to be a 4-3. And he's about to get the bad news.
God. Imagine if he drew a Northshire Cleric here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Northshire Cleric is much better.
Yeah. Wow. It's going to be one.
I don't want to say this game's over, but this game is pretty darn close to being over. How do you bounce back from this if you're Druid?
With 4 mana. Like, this is a 4-7 and a 4-5 on the board, and he's got 4 mana. And now he's using the Wild Growth.
Yeah. But the thing is, the Sludge Belcher, like, if this was all Priest had, maybe there's something. Like, if he draws Sylvanas. But Sludge Belcher is really, really hard to deal with.
Like, if his hand was, like, Mind Control and...
Ooh, he needs Sylvanas right now. Sylvanas is his last chance, I think. Otherwise, this game is just blowout. No, let's see. What can you do with Innervate?
Not much.
Drake into... No, Wrath would be just 4 damage.
He could, like, Druid of the Claw. and BGH.
Yeah.
He could get out Ancient of Lore one turn quicker to try and draw into something that's going to save his life.
But Druid of the Claw is not even that strong because he's just going to Shrink Meister and then heal up and then just keep the tempo on board.
He's taking 11 damage next turn. At least, no matter what.
Actually, I argue that even if you choose Sylvanas, he just dies because the Sludge Belcher stalls for so long.
Yeah. All he needs is 2 turns swinging with just the creatures that he has on the board.
I mean, that's it. The injured Blade Masters with Circle of Healing is just, like, one of them is already problematic enough where you're like, you snowball the game, but 2 is ridiculous.
Yeah, it may not look like it, but Silentstorm is a cold-blooded killer of the light.
I mean, I think I would have gotten an idea from that with his name. This Innervate needs to pick up Naturalized. That's the only way he can win here.
Wow.
That is game over. 11 damage. Light of the Naru. So, why not just play Cabal Shadow Priest here?
You can just Shrink Meister, kill the Ancient of Lore, Light of the Naru, heal up.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. Actually, that Drake Swipe might be really valuable.
In the light's name.
Can't use it. Needs an Innervate.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No, there is a chance that he can actually swing this right now.
Nope.
Okay.
Lethal sitting on the board.
Evaluate. Swipe your own Shredder? You can't do that. You can't even target your own minion with Swipe.
All right, so let's see. If he clears off anything from the board, does he live? So 8, 11, 14. If he clears off the Light Warden, but then he's doing nothing else. So he's going to die the turn after that anyway.
I don't know. 17 damage coming the other direction. Yeah, it's true. If you play Druid of the Claw, you might survive. Druid of the Claw, hero power. No, Druid of the Claw and Wild Growth. And pray that your opponent doesn't have a way to get past it easily.
Yeah.
Because then you can Drake Swipe next turn.
Yeah.
That actually might be the play. Drew the Claw, Wild Growth.
He's looking at that Light Warden. He's like moused over his Swipe and moused over his...
Drake could fetch for Innervate. We forgot about that. It might, I mean, desperate times calls for really desperate measures.
Nope.
Oh, and that's it. Domdus' run has ended. Silentstorm goes to semifinals with Priest.
Yeah.
And it seems like the mark of any Priest players, you do have to get one of those really big, fast starts in any matchup. When you're playing against Druid, you need the big tempo play with Circle of Healing. If you're playing against aggro, you need to have that huge swing with the Alkanai Soul Priest or the Pyromancers.
He gave himself 3 chances to do it, and he only needed 2. But Silentstorm, I mean, he played exceptionally well that series. And also, he brought decks that sort of broke the mold as far as the meta goes. I mean, we haven't seen a combination of those 3 decks in a long, long time in Conquest format.
Pretty typical Silentstorm, too. So hipster with his deck choices. So, what happens, man? Where the first 3 matches are done, so what's the semifinals going to look like, TJ?
Yeah, let's take a look at the bracket to see what's going to be coming up next. Roger versus Luigi's is going to be that first semifinal. Roger, of course, was the player that got a bye since he finished 2nd place in his Legendary Series week. And then, of course, after that, we'll be seeing Corneco versus Silentstorm. And at the end of the day, we will crown a winner. It's winner take all. The winner goes to that Season 2 Legendary Series Land Finals.
I'm looking at Silentstorm versus Luigi's in the finals here. Roger's a solid player, so I think he could definitely do it. But in terms of how Luigi's played in this first match, I'm feeling him. And I think Silentstorm definitely comes in here as with some really good information on his side. He knows his opponent's playing Freeze Mage. That'll definitely help in his upcoming matches. Yeah, it should be some good matches. We do want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for the Legendary Series Season 2. Plantronics and Gigabyte have hopped on board. And they're making all the fun stuff that we're able to do possible. They're letting Dan be here. They're feeding Dan headsets and motherboards. Doesn't sound very nutritious.
No, not at all. But yeah, big shout out to those guys. If you guys want to support the Legendary Series and support Hearthstone esports in general, let the sponsors know that you care about us and you care about them. And head to those links that you just saw on your screen and get some gear, some sponsor swag.
Sounds good.
You can also tweet at us using the hashtag HLS. You can also follow us on Twitter at ESL Hearthstone. Or you can tweet at me and Dan, at AsmoCutie for me, at Frodan for Dan. Of course, while we have these short little breaks that they give us, we'll be trying to join in on those conversations as well. But the next matchup is going to be Roger versus Luigi's. What do you think about that?
It's going to be fun. I think this will probably be one of the best matches of the day. I personally think both players are excellent in their own regards. Definitely like a top caliber play. Before we go, we also want to remind you guys an opportunity to win some cool prizes through packs and headsets on the giveaway. Just go to the link below, esl.gg/redemption series, and you'll have an opportunity to get some cool free stuff. And that's just an opportunity to give back to the community because we recognize it's not always just about the players and us and putting on this cool stuff. We want to give back some way.
Awesome. All right. Well, the first semifinal of the day, Roger versus Luigi's, will return right after this break.